Guys,
East Hampton Town Trustees, we are live.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for November 7th, 2023. I'd like to open with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Allison, could you do roll call, please?
Sure. John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Fox.
Here.
David Cataletto. Ben Dollander.
Here.
Tim Burnell.
Here.
Jim Grimes.
Yes.
Ah, he's here.
You called my name? Yes, I'm here.
Mike Martinson. And Bill Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Matt, do we have anyone on the phone besides Jim?
No, Jim's just on Zoom, but we have no one on the call-in lines right now, and we have the public number up, and no one's calling in.
Okay, and nobody is in the building.
Mr. Walsh is here.
Well, I'm sorry, Chris. Okay, so it appears there's no public comment tonight. Move on to new business. Transfer portion of the checking balance to NICLAS. So have you all seen the financial reports?
No.
Okay. Our checking account currently holds over $600,000.
Yay.
And I'd like to propose that we move a sizable portion over to the NICLAS fund.
I think we should.
Make sense?
And what is the sizable amount?
I'm going to leave that up to you guys.
Well,
Hey, Francis, I'd like to make a motion. We move 400,000 over to NICLAS. I think we should be covered on any expenses in the next 60 days.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, is anybody else? I've talked about it, with Francis and stuff before. $200,000 is plenty to have in a checking account.
Right, that would be 237.
Yeah, I mean,
do we know that, or are we just assuming that?
we can,
Okay,
putting money back in is not a very complicated.
Yeah, how liquid is it
That was
back and
my other
forth?
question, is how,
Okay, so the way this works is if we put in a request before noon, it will be in our account the next day.
so it's liquid.
That's
Yeah,
pretty,
very
very
liquid.
liquid. Yeah, yeah.
And it can be retrieved.
Jim, how did you get to 400,000?
Just knowing in our past history, Tim, as far as what our monetary needs are in the first quarter, we should be pretty well covered.
And my question was going to be, if we needed that money, it can be removed and brought back, yes? It's easily
Yes,
moved
if
back and
within a
forth?
day, we just-
Okay,
yeah.
terrific.
If we put it in by noon, it'll be in the next morning.
I'll second the 400.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
He makes money.
Dredging at Northwest Creek Inlet. John, were you down there?
I was there, Jim was there, Kim Shaw was there, Tim also was there. So I had took some Tim took some pictures, I took some pictures. Want to pull up it?
That's the county job, right?
It's a county job, yeah. It got sprung on Kim. They notified Kim like the day before they showed up.
Wow. That's not unusual for them.
I know.
They like that job because it's fairly small. It involves a lot of their property, the county.
It is, and they had recently gotten their Army Corps permit.
Oh, really?
Have they considered what they're doing? The last time we were doing that, the spot where they put where they put the excess sand is way too full.
Where do you see this?
Yeah, it's,
So this is beginning to pump. This is, the tractor is just to the east of the inlet. So go to the next one. So that's a distant shot of the pumping, and you can kind of see where the birds are. There, that sand is way, way out from the existing beach. So next slide. That's another distant shot of the completed project. That shot was, I think that's your shot, isn't it, Tim?
I'm not sure if that one's mine.
Is that
That was
placed?
taken about where the path comes down onto the beach from the,
And this is our transect for the horseshoe crabbing. So, I mean, I sent a note to the team in Cornell, just letting them know that it's happening, so it may change our numbers. But it's kind of a mess.
next one. This is a video taken from the top of the hill along the beach.
And it's right next to the channel.
It is, it's right.
It's just gonna go right back in.
I know.
This is
I know.
absurd.
It really should
Well,
be,
the spoil sites on the permit, this is one, and there's one on the Barcelona side. Kim thought that they were going to put it on both sides. But they informed us that day that we were misinformed and it's only going on
they
this.
never put, I mean, they go out of their way not to move stuff around. I mean,
Yeah.
can they come up with a way to move some of that stuff out of there? Put it in
I don't
Montauk
think
or
they
something.
intend to. I mean, I'm sure they could, but, and this is that's the completed job. So most of the dredging they did to the Barcelona side.
So it's the-
It's a pretty wide, deep inlet now, but we'll see if that sand
How deep?
stays where it is.
High tide. Do you know how deep how deep is it?
I don't know, I didn't.
Try to walk through there.
Did they go into the harbor itself at all?
We went a little bit into the harbor, but we had talked a year or two ago about seeing if the permit could be they could extend the dredging down through the harbor.
through the bar, on the
Yeah,
west.
hey, guys, I think this is a case, this is an operation that's done for navigational purposes. I think what we're gonna need to do to get ahead of this is recognize that there's gonna be a necessity to modify the permits to get into that shoal to the south, because it is beach compatible sand there. What will likely happen is we'll be in a situation where perhaps if we agree to fund the additional dredging, we can do this and get it done. Is the county going to do it as part of their harbor dredging? No, I don't think they will.
Would they use community preservation funds for this?
Well, it's, Bill, it would either be something perhaps as water quality with community preservation, or the trustees. This is the kind of stuff that we talked about, utilizing the monies from the Orsted, from the wind farm monies. And this would fall right in line with what we've had discussion about in the past.
I know we had talked about this in the past, and Kim was interested in this, and I believe she talked to the county about this extended dredging. And I believe she even brought up the Southold concept of kicking in money, but the communication, I guess, never really.
Well, yeah, I think, what happened is, I think, it was sort of a conceptual conversation that Kim had with the county. But I think what we really need to do here is truly, there'll need to be a modification of the DEC permits for this to name those areas to be extended. And we'll have to flesh out some sort of an agreement financially with the county ahead of doing the actual dredging. So as much as this project may fall short of Kim's and even our goals, I think what it should act as is like, okay, let's get ahead of this for the next event and look at what the dredging schedule is going to be as it relates to East Hampton's water bodies in the future, and see if we can't get some agreement with ourselves, the county, and do the modifications in advance. You're not going to get the DEC to turn around a modification on that dredging, days before a dredging event occurs.
But that one area seems to get done every 3 or 4 years, so
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I say this is one of those things that, hey, we recognize the issue that we have here. We also have, to the west of that, we've got Little Northwest Creek, which I know was only done a year ago or so, but that area has shoaled back in looking at that area, we're going to need to modify that future permit to align that new, like a future dredging event a little farther to the east than what we did this first shot. We've seen how the creek reacted to that dredging event. So hey, this is a learning experience, and I think the fact that we do have a good line of communication with Kim Shaw, I think if we can loop the county and loop DEC into this discussion, I think we may be set in a situation here where we can do a better job in the future.
Well, the thing we have to remember over there is the county owns a portion of it.
Yeah.
So we may not have as much say as we would like.
Francis, it's not a matter of say. I think it's really just a matter of getting everybody in the room together, having a good discussion, and getting some consensus of what the goals are.
Yeah, we own the beach on Barcelona, so I think that would give us some say in
Right.
deposition of extra spoil.
Well, I think the leverage here, guys, is it's not going to be so much a matter of say as financial participation.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Jim. I think maybe at the first of the year, we should put together a committee to specifically pursue these things.
yeah.
Good idea.
And I might be getting ahead of myself here, but in the list you mentioned there, Northwest, Little Northwest, I know we're going to talk later about the Devon permit, which they seem to have gotten the DEC to agree to let them do dredging in May. So maybe we can pursue something like that with the Acabana culvert dredging as well.
Well, John, if that's setting a precedent in our favor, yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda for a resolution for a dredging committee.
Yeah.
Well, Drew is supposed to, I think he's still working on that. It's like taking,
We should modify that to see if we can piggyback on that later dredging window.
so I mean,
Anything else on that?
No.
All right. Nature Conservancy, the salt marsh adaptation resiliency teams, Academy, Long Island, New York, developing capacity and plans for the salt marsh restoration across New York Marine.
Yeah, so I made this little PowerPoint presentation to sort of summarize their proposal and the plans. And I made it in one format, and I can only load it onto this screen on a different format. So it's going to look kind of screwy, but I can read through it and you might get a good idea. Can you put that up, Allison? So as I emailed everybody with the proposal, Nicole Marr, Nature Conservancy, submitted a proposal to NOAA to to fund this salt marsh adaptation resiliency teams, which is the SMART teams acronym, on Long Island, to developing capacity and plans for salt marsh restoration across the New York Marine District. So this
5 projects, right?
five projects. There's the second slide.
Hempstead Beaver Dam.
Oh, it's coming up right. So there's 5 sites, Hempstead Bay, Bellport Bay, Shinnecock Bay, adjacent to the Shinnecock Nation property, Neshomic Preserve on Peconic Bay. That's probably on the area between North Haven and Shelter Island. And then the Accabonac Marsh. Accabonac Marsh is the most advanced of all the properties in terms of background work. So the next slide. This is a photo of one of the mosquito breeding areas in Accabonac Marsh that is hoping to be restored. As you can see that, you can see how wet it is, and you can see the line of bushes in the background. That's an agricultural embankment that was built many, many years ago to use the land that Susan's standing on there for agricultural purposes. And it's not allowing that area of the marsh to drain properly. So it's become waterlogged and holds water, and it's an ideal spot for puddling to form and support the mosquito larval process. So that's what this is an example of one of the areas that we're trying, would be slated for restoration to allow it to drain better, like the rest of the marsh does, which you can see behind the 3 people in the back.
See where the ditch was behind him.
The fellow on the right I couldn't remember his name. He's from the SMART team too.
He's one of the SMART
Yeah,
team members.
he had a lot of information, which was great. Notice I'm wearing my balloon sweatshirt.
So next slide.
Can't see it.
So the plan, this is the crux of the proposal. So each new field team from all the 5 sites are tasked to train, develop a restoration plan for their site of up to 100 acres on each of the 5 sites. To determine how the proposed restoration efforts improve salt marsh capacity to provide flood protection, marsh elevations, vegetation density will be measured before and over time.
It's a warning.
What's that?
I turned mine
Suffolk
off.
County,
We under attack?
something like that.
Under attack.
So every month they're doing one.
Sorry.
So basically, the marsh elevations and the vegetation density will be measured before and after and over time after the restoration's implemented. So for Accabonac, the marsh elevations will be monitored with using transects, using laser levels, and there are already established marsh levels on the site. So really, there'll only have to be changes recorded.
Yeah. John, let me ask you, because I read this last night, as I said in my email to you, to Nicole, and we have, Bill, you and I have gone to the SMART Teams sessions that she had at the Nature Conservancy building. Did I understand this correctly, that this will not require machinery, which will not further damage the salt marsh, but it will be done?
I think that's all to
hand,
be determined.
right? I mean, that seems to be what, that's what I took from this, that it would be the least invasive without big machinery to correct the problem, and that they would have training workshops for local stakeholders. And
I think the point, Susan, is that the restoration plan itself hasn't been developed yet.
right,
That's part of the project,
Mhm.
is to develop a restoration plan to determine where the restoration will take place, and then what the plan for restoration of that site is.
Mhm.
So I don't know in terms of machinery.
Well, that was in here, and that's why I thought perhaps you'd know, that she was referring to not having to use heavy machinery, that it would be done, we would be taught, people who would be.
Well, that's what we've always
Contributing.
talked about, is that it would be, minimally invasive with using runnels, just small ditches to get drained one pond to another pond to the larger marsh.
And also, this is going to be a volunteer program too, to get people from the community, similar to what we did with the mosquito larvae water sampling.
I didn't read
kind of-
any detail of that in the proposal. I have a feeling they'll put in for funding. I don't know how
She said
far the
local
funding will do.
stakeholders and community members. So I thought, are you going to, is that something that,
If it were me putting in a proposal, I wouldn't be depending on volunteers to get the job done. So I have a feeling there
Because I
must
could
be
be
some
interested.
money in there for, it might be minimal money for the people who are actually doing the shoveling and the raking and the
yeah,
grading.
well, I'm saying if you're heading this up with Nicole, I would be happy to come back with my boots.
I mean, you'll be on, I'm sure you'll be on the continuing communication with Nicole, so, it's not, that. The trustees are just one element. You can be an element, an individual element too.
Well, I'm happy to help. Anyway,
So also there'll be photos taken of the vegetation, drone imagery, and measurement of transects on the ground to determine the success of the restoration. And water level loggers that measure salinity will be deployed to track any changes to the hydrology of the subject area. See if it's, becoming either more or less brackish. Okay, next slide. So the time frame for the project is, and keep in mind, this is a proposal. This may or may not be funded, but if it's funded, as soon as it's funded, the first phase will be contracting with NOAA and the project team. So that's kind of the project team, I'm assuming, is the SMART team people, and it may also include people on the ground that would be doing the work. It may not, I'm not sure. Hire a project coordinator, finalize the contracts and subawards. Organize a schedule of the sites to be surveyed for birds with Fish and Wildlife, Audubon, and get an FAA license and learn how to operate the drone. In the first year, which would be from the next fall to the fall of 25, would be to complete pre-restoration monitoring and begin the restoration activities after a workshop is implemented. And these work elements here are really limited to what's going to take place in Accabonac. So pre-restoration monitoring and restoration, beginning of restoration will take place from the fall of 24 to the fall of 25. And there'll be a workshop for all the field teams in the eastern and western locations that year also. In the second year, from the fall of 25 to the fall of 26, again, monitoring and adaptive management. I'm assuming that means restoration activities that look like they haven't worked will be adapted in that year. And then continued monitoring through that year and the third year. And then the third year is, again, continued monitoring and adaptive management at Accabonac and complete the restoration and identify the next restoration site within the harbor. So that's it. That's the time frame. That's the proposal. That's what Nicole and we're hoping for to be funded by NOAA. Should know this by, I don't know when, but probably not for a few months. Probably by spring, I would think.
Anybody have any questions?
No, this is something we want to stay really involved in. A little off in the future.
I think also
It
that,
might be a good opportunity to get that material by the boat ramp in Accabonac put to some good use if it's turns out to be not beach compatible, but perhaps marsh compatible.
perhaps.
One of those things we can speak about in the future, I guess.
You have something else there, John?
Yeah, I forgot what it was then. I'll blurt it out when I remember.
All right. Move on to old business, dock policy items discussion. So the committee met last week to go over each item and review the comments from the hearing and came up with a number of policy recommendations. Do you want me to go through it, or do you want to go through it? Okay. All right, so we'll go through each item here. It'll take a little while. The annual dock charges, findings. The trustees have used different methods of charging for annual dock agreements. The goals are to create uniformity across all harbors and for all agreement holders with regards to annual dock charges. The committee recommendation is the annual charges for all dock agreements will be $1 per square foot with a minimum charge of $150 per section 5.
Per section of this document
Right,
later on.
5, part 3.
Yeah, today.
Herein, freestanding pilings and any other pilings not supporting fixed docks will be charged at $18 per piling.
Yeah, so that's freestanding and basically pilings that are in place to hold the floating docks.
Was there a charge for pilings prior to this?
There's only a charge for freestanding pilings. There was no charge for the pilings holding the floating docks, but you'll see later on, we're recommending leaving the pilings that are supporting the floating docks in the water over the winter, which before they were supposed to have been taken out.
All right.
It's called $20, 18. Great number.
I think the charge is basically, now we charge $4 a lineal foot. So, that's compatible with a 4-foot wide dock, basically.
Okay.
Well, most docks are, docks are between 3 and 5, some are 6. There's some platforms out there that are being charged only by the lineal foot, but they're taking up more square footage. So we didn't feel it was fair to charge somebody with a 3-foot wide dock the same lineal foot charge as somebody with a 20-foot wide dock.
Definitely gets charged for what you have.
And usually those wide, very wide platforms are fairly short anyway.
Yeah.
So.
All right, 2, matters involving current annual dock agreement holders. Fee structure for A through D below to be discussed. Should an annual fee apply throughout a 3-year permitting process? How will the fee be calculated for docks recently expanded? A, unpermitted expansions. Findings, where the trustee inventory inspection has shown a dock is a different size than currently permitted by the trustees, indicating a likely unpermitted dock expansion. The goals reconcile these findings of unpermitted dock expansions and provide a path to compliance for those who qualify. Committee recommendations. Each agreement holder will receive an official notice via certified mail with return receipt that the trustee inspection indicates their dock is non-compliant with their current agreement. The notice will grant the agreement holders 6 months from the date of notice to submit their application to reconcile the existing permit to the trustees. This notice will also indicate that any annual agreement holders who do not submit an application within 6 months risk denial of permit to bring the dock into compliance, and that the trustees reserve the right to require the non-compliant portion of the dock to be removed. Criteria to be considered along with the application include: the agreement owner may provide evidence of compliance with all other municipal permits. 2, the agreement holder may provide evidence the dock and/or dock expansion is installed prior to either the 1984 dock prohibition for Georgia Pond, Hook Pond, Accabonac Harbor, Napeague Harbor, and Hans Creek, or prior to the 1987 dock prohibition for Hog Creek and the portion of 3 Mile Harbor laying south of the line extending from the northeast corner of the Suffolk County tax map parcel 200-92-6 -1 eastward to the northwest corner of Suffolk County tax map parcel 300-94-6-1. Excuse me. 3, any other evidence of trustee approval or compliance that may not be on file with the trustees. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Any questions or comments?
My only comment is that throughout this, I see that we are being very helpful to the people who have got that need to be updated, moving to work with the public and to get everybody up to where they should be.
We want to, we
Yeah,
want
be
to give
nice.
them an opportunity to
Fix what's wrong.
Right.
So I thought that was very good, and I like that we're taking that approach.
B, docks never built. Findings, where the owner maintains a current annual dock agreement but has never built or installed the dock. Goals, present a reasonable timeline to the agreement holder to build their dock in compliance with their agreement, and eventually reconcile or eliminate these unutilized perpetual outstanding agreements. Committee recommendations. The owner will be sent an official trustee notice via certified mail and return receipt that the agreement holder shall be granted 6 months from the date of notice to apply to the trustees to renew the original construction permit. All permit renewals will have language that the permit is subject to all municipal permits. Once the dock construction permit is renewed, it will be valid for 1 year, and the permit agreement holder will be granted up to 2 additional renewals. If the dock has not been built or installed after 2 renewals for a total of 3 years from initial permit approval, the trustees retain the right to deny any further renewals or approvals, and therefore the owner risks losing trustee permission to build a dock.
So basically, if this dock somebody has a permit for, has been paying every year, a dock agreement every year, but never built the dock, they're gonna have 6 months to apply, build the dock, and then they're gonna have to apply to all of, us and other permit agencies. And then the dock should be built within 3 years. And if they don't do that, we have the right to pull their permit.
Sounds very reasonable.
Yeah.
C, C, dilapidated docks. Findings, where the owner maintains an annual dock agreement, but the inspection indicated the dock to be in a poor, unsafe, dilapidated, or otherwise unusable condition. Goals, encourage, promote agreement holders with docks in an unsafe or unusable condition to renovate or reconstruct their docks or risk losing their right to maintain a dock. Committee recommendations, the owner will be sent an official trustee notice via certified mail with return receipt. Then they shall be granted 6 months from the date of notice to submit an application to the trustees to renovate or reconstruct the dock. All permits will have language that the permit is subject to all other municipal permits. Once the dock renovation, reconstruction permit is renewed, it will be valid for 1 year, and the permit agreement holder will be granted up to 2 additional renewals. If the dock has not been renovated or reconstructed after the 2 renewals for a total of 3 years from initial permit approval, the trustees retain the right to deny any further renewals or approvals, and therefore the owner risks losing trustee permission to have a dock and may be required to remove the existing dock. All good?
All good.
D, future unpermitted expansions. Findings and goals, to develop a policy to deal with situations whereby after the current inventory has established its baseline of dock inventory, future trustee inspections reveal an agreement holder to have expanded their dock without a valid trustee permit. The trustee recommendations, this current dock inspection cycle will create an inventory list to be considered a baseline for all docks within trustee waterways. If after this baseline, future inspections reveal unpermitted dock expansions, the agreement holder will be sent official trustee notice via certified mail with return receipt that their dock is not in compliance with their trustee annual dock agreement. The agreement holder shall be granted 6 months from the date of notice to submit a permit application to the trustees to bring the dock into compliance. The trustees shall deny any application and require removal of any expansions whereby the application was not timely submitted. Applications that are timely submitted will still be reviewed and heightened scrutiny, and with heightened scrutiny, and the trustees will reserve the right to deny any such application and require removal of the unpermitted expansion. So that needs to be discussed and reviewed with the board.
Basically, I think we felt that, this is pretty egregious, right? We've done the inspections, we've embarked on a whole new scenario out there, and then somebody expands their dock anyway. And so we felt that we had to, give them their say and set these things up for them to be able to show us, why they should keep this. But, we felt that, any review would be with heightened scrutiny on a situation like this.
Makes sense.
So.
That makes sense. E, property transactions, findings and goals. It has been a challenge for trustee staff to obtain new property owners' contact information post-property transfer. Committee recommendations. The trustees shall add a clause to the annual dock agreement which requires annual dock agreement holders to notify trustees of their intent to transfer the property. This notice must include the purchaser's information. Sample language to be inserted in all annual agreements. Agreement holders shall notify the trustees in writing of agreement holders' intent to sell, transfer, or otherwise convey the subject property to another party. This notice must include the names and contact information of all proposed transferees. Failure to provide the trustees with this notice of intent to transfer may result in a forfeiture of the right to maintain their annual dock agreement.
I would like to make a comment on this. When I read it, as a real estate broker for decades now, I think that this might be something that can easily be implemented from the real estate organizations themselves. On a listing, when you take a listing to rent, you have to now be registered. If a broker or a salesperson takes a listing, they go into the office, it is distributed to all of the other brokerages who are going to have the ability to show the property and to sell it. So I'm suggesting that the real estate listing should provide this information in the comments, because there is a space on the listing that has all various different comments. And this could be something that the manager of the office, it doesn't require every single real estate office. It can be one office. We have Elliman, Compass, Sotheby's, Brown Harris Stevens, Corcoran, Town and Country, Bespoke, and there's some other like Simon Harrison and Sag Harbor. But if this information is distributed to one of those offices, that will go into their manual, and the managers of the offices can, during their Monday morning meetings, which is what they usually have, where all the brokers are present of that office, the manager can discuss this new addition that they must include. So at the time of the sale, the attorney gets all that information, and that is put into the contract of sale. And then the seller can identify the buyer. And it's a simple thing. I mean, we have so many things that we have to do when we're actually closing, and this is just one other thing to add. And managers can make that accessible to the information to the brokers themselves or salespeople. So I'm going to suggest that some language be drafted that Chris could come up with, that we send out a letter to the offices. As I said, there are numerous offices under these company names, but it only requires one, and that manager will share it with the other managers, and we'll just add this to the listings. And the brokers and the salespeople are aware that this information has to be included on the memo of sale when they submit it to their attorney.
But this is only for a property where there's a dock, right?
Oh, yeah.
This wouldn't apply
Yes.
to the neighbor could have a waterfront property, but no dock.
Yeah, just
But
have to-
that could
And
be
you don't need
confusing.
that, only if it's a dock. So if the broker is taking a listing, you know, when you see there's a dock there, that note is in there that at the time of the sale, that information of the buyer, the
It's gotta
new
be,
buyer.
you know, the dock on a property requires an annual permit.
But
That's-
it also, you're suggesting that the new seller, the new buyer's name and contact information would be included. So that would be something for an attorney when they're,
Then you get into the LLCs and all this stuff.
LLCs, you have to, by law, you have to identify,
Somebody, I mean, you could identify an attorney that has to take the correspondence.
yeah, it would be in the memo of sale. And then the attorney would add that to the contract, that that's part of the contract, the responsibility of the seller to the buyer. But LLCs used to be, you could hide behind the LLC. It's now law. You must disclose who is actually a member of the LLC. And that's been for several years now. But this is a simple thing to do. It's just, you know,
Should almost notify the local attorneys too, or post it.
well, we can, yes, we can do that. And the brokerages will tell them that that has to be included as well. We can, you know, but it's a simple thing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different things when we go to a closing that we have to be responsible for. And I don't see this as a big problem at all.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Would that have, would we have to, so the trustees would directly notify the real estate brokers? as
Yes, the
far as we
managing-
can identify them.
Yes, yes.
Would that have to be done on an ongoing basis or just once?
No, it becomes process. It becomes part of the company's policy and how to do things properly. It's just adding on another piece of the contract of sale. And every manager would get that information. As I said, you only have to send it to one office, one manager, and that person will distribute it to the other offices. And they can discuss that this is something that the government, the trustees as a government, require and they need to comply with that. It really, to me, it's just another thing that you add to the list of things that.
What if they don't? What if it's somebody doesn't? What recourse?
Still in their agreement, the dock agreement, right?
If a
Yeah,
broker does
It'll be in
not,
the dock agreement too, but that it's always been a problem
Right.
that former owners haven't notified us of the new owners, so, the office has to track them down.
if I'm taking a listing from you, John Aldred, and I'm going to ask you, do you have a permit for your dock? And you're going to say yes or no, and I'm going to be able to find out, because I'll go to the trustee's office as a broker and find out if you indeed have a permit, because that's part of what I've done in the past, and people have not had permits for a lot of things. But once a manager puts that into their policy and the company adopts this and understands that it is by a government a government, which the trustees are, that this is required, the brokers will understand that, and they will have a meeting.
Yeah, I know. I guess my question though is are there any repercussions if this doesn't happen?
That would be from the office. That would be from the office, and the attorney.
So whatever
would also-
repercussions there are would have to come from the trustees, is that what you're saying?
No, if when you have a closing for a house, that information is sent to an attorney who the company has hired, they're on staff, and we send that information in. The lawyers for the firm draft the information. The broker sends in a memorandum of sale with all the information, terms and everything. Then that goes to the attorneys, the seller's attorney, and that attorney will then know too that this is part of protocol that must be adhered to. Because the managing the offices of the real estate brokerage, that will be on their memo of sale. If the house has a permit, it'll say a permit must be, an updated permit must be in place, or the permit for the dock must be submitted as part of the contract.
But who would have to then notify the trustees? Because what we're asking them in this is that the former owner notify the trustees of the new owner.
Mm-hmm.
And how would that
Well, then it would be,
process you described, who would be responsible for notifying the trustees? The
it should be the
former owner?
broker's responsibility, in my opinion. The broker who is actually the exclusive broker, or the homeowner can also be responsible for giving us the information. But the broker will have that information in the memo of sale. So that's another backup. The owner should be responsible.
There could be situations where there's no bank, there's no real estate firm involved. It could be a sale to a friend or family.
Cash sale.
Yeah, it could be a cash
Well,
transaction.
cash sale, you
but
still
then-
have to have a lawyer,
Well, then
contract of
So
sale.
then the attorney should also have that information.
Yeah, well, we can do that, but
But
I
what are
think
the,
immediately.
your question is, what are the repercussions if no one notifies us at all, right? Which probably happens now, and then maybe Allison
Well,
ends up chasing it
in
down.
effect, there are no repercussions now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering I'm wondering if we went through this real estate
Yeah,
process, is somebody responsible if somebody doesn't?
Well, it still comes down to the same thing where we can, they risk forfeiture of their rights for a dock,
It would just come
the
in.
new owner.
I would assume that what happens is, this comes up when you go to renew, you send out the request that they renew
To
the
renew.
permit, pay the fee. So if nobody pays the fee for, then how do you find out who's responsible for paying?
Well, the new homeowner,
Yeah,
the new homeowner.
but apparently that's not as easy to, you'd have to go to the assessors, find out where the tax bill goes, and again, if you run into an LLC, you'd have to contact person for that. So if the dock permit fee is not paid, the new owners could be in jeopardy of losing a right to have a dock. I'm sure they don't want that to happen.
It's in the broker's interest for a clean closing.
Oh, yeah, no, this
So-
is a great thing. I'm just
I don't
trying-
think it's a requirement for them to
This
do,
probably
it's
will-
just in their interest.
This will probably take care of, 95% of
If the
sales.
seller has a permit,
Right,
that seller would then give a copy of that permit to the broker and to the attorney. All right, the seller themselves, they need to be advised of this through the brokerage, letting the homeowner know, when I take your listing, these are the documents I need from you. Not only do I need a survey,
Right.
I have to go to the tax department and find out how much your taxes are currently when I put the listing in. So you tell the homeowner, I will need a permit. And if the homeowner, then it's up to the homeowner to go to our office and ask for a copy of their permit if they can't find it. And
Annual doc agreement,
annual doc agreement, excuse me, what did I call it?
permit.
A permit, excuse me, annual doc agreement, yes. So this is just another step, and all the little details that go into the closing of a house and taking the listing, this is easy. It really is.
Good.
I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Future dock inspections and scheduling, findings and goals. Once the current dock inventory baseline is established, continued monitoring of these shoreline structures will have great importance and value to the trustees in the future. Future inspections should occur as follows. Committee recommendations. Aerial drone inspections of each, excuse me, annual agreement holder's dock will occur every 2 to 3 years. The trustees will contract a drone photographer to take aerial images of every dock on the inventory list, as well as document any docks that are not on the inventory list in all trustee waterways. 2, physical field inspections by the trustees or their agents, volunteers, etc., should occur every 6 to 10 years. Each trustee will be assigned a number of docks to inspect. Their reports will be used to compare the docks to the drone imagery and to the annual agreements held for each dock.
Can I ask you a question as to how the number 6 to 10 years for an inspection came up?
Well,
Is that that's a long stretch?
That was 6 to 10 years for another survey.
another physical survey, people on the ground.
Oh, okay.
We weren't sure how much was too much, how much was not enough, so.
And we can't dictate what future boards do.
I think it's just a guideline and can be fine tuned.
I mean, obviously, if anything shows up in drone
Yeah.
survey,
And that's,
that would cause a site visit to occur, I would think, right?
And it might, the physical, the boots on the ground survey might depend on what the drone survey cycle looks like it might shake out as. We might start we might do a drone 2 years down the road and think, well, that's pretty quick. Maybe the next one should be 3
Three,
years.
yeah,
Now you're
I see
5
that
years
now.
in.
These are suggestions, it's gonna go on.
no, now that I see 2 to 3 years, and then
The drone survey is not gonna show you, not gonna give you detail about the,
actual
like the
size.
structure, the maintenance, yeah?
Mhm.
I mean, that's why it's a good idea to have people actually go look at the thing. You see if pilings are rotten, or if there's, wood, that's not gonna show up with an aerial photograph always.
I think you've done a great job on this, by the
Yeah,
way.
this is an
It's not finished
incredible
yet, but
lot
it's
of
really
work.
very thorough and carefully thought out.
Number 4, unpermitted delinquent docks. Findings, the inspections revealed existing delinquent docks which do not hold any trustee permit. Goals, reconcile these delinquent docks, provide a path to compliance on a case-by-case basis, and prevent future unpermitted docks. The committee recommendations are, if during this current inspection, a dock was found within trustee jurisdiction and there is not a valid trustee permit on file for this dock, the dock owner will be sent an official trustee notice via certified mail with return receipt that upon inspection, trustees have learned that the owner has an unpermitted dock, which is non-compliant with trustee policy. The unpermitted dock owner shall have 6 months from the date of notice to submit an application to the trustees to legalize the dock. The trustees shall deny any untimely application. The trustees reserve the right to deny any such application and will decide on a case-by-case basis whether to approve this request to legalize the dock using the following criteria. 1, owners to present evidence of any existing municipal permits for the dock. 2, owner to present evidence the dock was installed prior to either the 1984 prohibition on docks for Georgica Pond, Hook Pond, Accabonac Harbor, Napeague Harbor, and Hans Creek, or the 1987 prohibition for docks in Hans Creek and the portion of 3 Mile Harbor laying south of the line extending from the northeast corner of the Suffolk County tax map parcel 300-92-6-1 eastward to the northwest corner of the Suffolk County tax map parcel 300-94-6-1. 3, owner to present other evidence of trustee approval that is not on file with the trustees.
Scribblings on napkins.
Yeah, really, been done.
I know, that's why I said it.
Any questions, comment?
Very well done.
Okay, 5, piling policies. Findings and goals. There is a need to develop consistent policy matters regarding pilings. The committee recommendations. 1, the definition of a piling. A post, pole, or column-like structure which can be of varying size and materials, which driven into the ground and used to support a dock, float, catwalk, or any other dock-like structure. May also be used to provide independent structure for vessels to affix lines to. 2, seasonal removal of pilings versus leaving the pilings installed year-round. Pilings may remain installed year-round at owner's discretion. This is consistent with the East Hampton Town Code. 3, annual charges for pilings, freestanding pilings and pilings used to support floating docks and seasonally removed components will incur charges. Each freestanding piling and each piling used to support any floating or removable dock component will incur a charge of $18 per piling. Pilings supporting the fixed portions of a dock will not incur any charges.
I think most of the comments at the last meeting were about removal of pilings. So we kind of made this more consistent with what the code says. And I don't think the conditions exist now the way they might have existed 30, 35 years ago when I think this was, removal of pilings was more of an issue.
I think that was also, at the time, they wanted seasonal things to use, things like trap stakes to stay in. The pilings have gotten larger. And everybody at that meeting was against the annual removal of them.
Yeah.
It's more damaging too, especially if the pilings have migratory laying of eggs and so forth. So it would be more damaging.
Oh yeah, you're disturbing the bottom every time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we hope we don't get a hard freeze and
Yeah,
pilings floating all over the harbor.
we should just, if you're around, try to do a little drive around.
What's that?
If we're around in a really cold winter, maybe just keep an eye on that.
I think it was Chris that suggested that it's, you could tie these pilings to the fixed pilings or somewhere on the shoreline so that they won't float away.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the ice damage, that's something that that the dock owner is gonna be responsible for anyhow.
It would be in their own interest, yeah.
I mean, they sometimes come loose from,
They
And
heave,
start
they heave
floating?
up with the ice.
Well,
oh,
could-
Lincoln logs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you need just the right conditions, and there's bubbler systems, there's things you could put in to stop them from doing that. You can just keep your eye on them and stuff, you know, there's, if you're gonna get a hard freeze for a month, you know,
You would think that the freeze would keep them in place.
no, it grabs on them when the tide goes up, it pulls them up.
Oh, interesting.
And, you know, if that
That's something
happens
new.
through a few cycles, thing, you know, and then if it's frozen in the ice and a large chunk of the ice moves with the current, the piling's going along for the ride, you know?
I see.
So,
Okay, interesting. Learned something new. Thank you, Bill.
All right, number 6, floating removable dock policies, findings and goals. There is a need to develop consistent policy regarding any floating or removable dock components. Committee recommendations are any floating dock, removable ramp, walkway, or movable dock component shall be removed no later than December 1st of each year. After December 1st, the trustees will work with Marine Patrol to do a scan of the harbors for any floating dock, removable ramp, walkway, or movable component left installed after this deadline. And we're to discuss what happens if they are left in. Thoughts? We don't need this answer tonight.
Yeah, I think we have to work with Marine Patrol and the town on that. We don't have enforcement. The town might be able to, we might be able to, you know, piggyback on the town's enforcement policies, given that there's language in the code about docks, how there's handled as well. But it might be, you know, I mean, I know what we usually do with things that are left, that aren't supposed to be left, like moorings or kayaks. There's an impound policy. I'm not sure how easy it would be an impound of
I was
floating.
going to say, it's taking pilings and impounding them, and how do you identify whose pilings they are?
Well, it's the floating dock portion.
Not the pilot.
yeah. I think the first thing you do is communicate, make sure that people are aware of the, you know,
Yeah.
policies and stuff.
Is that put on the permit itself then, that the trustees provide when they issue permits?
I think it is, is that in a, I think it is. Is that in a permit, actually, Allison, that the floating dock must be removed?
So it does not explicitly say those words. What it does say is that the annual agreement is valid for the time period of April, I don't know the exact date, until the following December 1st for floating dock, and that for fixed dock, the agreement is valid for that entire year. So essentially saying that the floating docks can only be, are only allowed in for the summer season.
Yeah, that's how it's addressed. So it is addressed.
Yeah.
It's a little cryptic.
Vague.
Right.
It's a little vague. I think if we just become more specific, then that's helpful to the,
That's what we're trying to do.
right, with the dates, I mean, so.
Anyone else?
Just need to figure out the consequence due to that.
What's the consequences with the town code?
I don't, you know, it's in the town code and zoning. And I think it basically, I'm no town code expert, but I think the zoning code kind of deals with what you can build and where you can build it. I think it kind of deals with building things more than.
But if it requires removal,
It would be a temporary unauthorized structure or something like that. It gets a little, I think we should send them a letter telling them it's supposed to be out.
you have a copy of it?
I do.
We want to like give it fine, daily fine after the first. That's a little hard.
Sometimes that's done for closings.
But
it's
I'm
not
wondering
closed.
if we need to piggyback anything on top of that, or we just
Yeah,
let it go.
yeah.
A notification maybe.
I think most docks are pulled by early December, right?
Most.
It's those that don't.
It says, yeah, here it is. It says, let's see, it's in, it's in zoning, standards and safeguards for natural resource special permits in the section on docks. Every part of the dock except the piling shall be designed and shall be used so that it is removed during the winter months and reinstalled in the spring, i.e. so that the dock accepting only the pilings is fully removable.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Sorry.
So that's where the language is, but it doesn't, it just talks about the design
Yeah,
and use of the dock.
So they don't have, if it's
I
not
don't know.
removed, they don't have a,
Well, that's one sentence in the code, I don't know.
I mean, the way we could deal with this would be that, when it came up for renewal, we could use that as a reason for not renewing it, because they're not following
That's a good point.
they're not following the language of the permit.
Yeah.
You know, you could, if you don't follow the regulations, we could look unkindly on renewing your permit. You know,
It's reasonable.
that's a gentle way.
Yeah.
I think the key, though, is working with Marine Patrol to identify floating docks that are left in.
That's good.
And I think, if we can work with them on docks, moorings, kayaks, and get into a regular progression with their season and work this out over the next couple of years, hopefully it'll continue kind of on its own after that.
Collaboration, team effort, all good.
All right. Number 7, Georgia Pond loophole. Findings. Even with the prohibition of new docks in place, trustees approved several applications for platforms or bottom steps in Georgia Pond, thus creating this loophole. Define a policy regarding the Georgia Pond platforms, bottom steps. On May 10th, 1984, the trustees issued policy which no longer allowed any new piers, docks, fixed or floating, in any part of Georgia Pond, including Georgia Cove, Wainscott Pond, Hook Pond, and Northwest Creek. Should this policy be amended to include platforms and enlarged bottom steps, thereby closing the loophole?
Are we voting on this?
No, we're discussing it right now,
Oh,
Well, yeah.
right?
I think it was characterized this way because there will be probably a motion laid on the table to a resolution. And see how people feel about it in a vote.
Any thoughts?
I think, my thought is that, these structures are in effect docks, just called another name. And we want a consistent policy. I'm in favor of, declaring them docks.
I think that makes sense.
Jim, you have anything you want to add?
No, listen, you know my position on this. I don't really see the evil in the docks. There's situations in Georgia Cove in particular, where these platforms, whatever we want to call them, were put in. They've got like almost a bluff shoreline along the west side of Georgia Cove, which honestly, unless you had some sort of structure, you're just going to further degrade that bluff in order to get to the pond. I recognize, John, we talked about it at that meeting, the floating portions of these things, it does rest on our bottom, but quite honestly, what I've seen from them, they don't do any real detriment to our pond or the resources.
And I guess my feeling on that is, like anybody who has property on a body of water, if it's a bluff, they can get to the body of water with a structure that's permitted by another agency, not ours. That'd be a staircase, but they can get to the water.
Yeah, the only thing that happens over there, John, is because we regulate the level of Georgia Pond with respect to our letting of the pond, you could have that set of steps that bring you down to the water that truly put you in the water. And then a week later, that water could be 25 feet away from that spot, and it could be high and dry. And I think that kind of lent itself to having these floating portions. It's not like I'm gonna to kind of an analogy would be we issue permits for those structures that come to bear at our beaches, let's say over in Northwest. But in this case here, there's no beach per se. There's a shoreline that fluctuates.
I mean, I think the level of the pond is a concern for a lot of issues in Georgia, and the trustees have typically let the pond in the spring and the fall to try to regulate it, if you will, environmentally. But as with the sailing in the pond, you know, a lot of the residents are unhappy when the spring let continues into the summer because it makes it more difficult to sail. I kind of see this as the same thing. I mean, we're trying to work with people who are there in the summer, which, you know, it's more people are there in the summer than there are year round. And, you know, letting the pond and then giving it a chance to fill in the summer for the recreational activities. And that would apply to these bluff front properties as well. Well,
Hey, John, the only point I was trying to make is how these things evolved in the first place. I don't think the applications here were random and initially in effect to try and get a dock. I think they were initially placed there just to try and get some sort of patent access to a pond that was safe for the users.
Well,
and I do recognize your position on this. I'm just trying to present, you know, how we got to where we are and how these structures initially were differentiated from let's say the other docks.
would it make it, okay, so you believe that they're just to access the water, not specifically to be used as a dock. Is that correct?
Actually, Francis, they're not truly used as a dock because if you look at the photos of our surveys along there, these floating portions do not have cleats on them as, you know, to tie a boat to. And I think that was one of the things that was actually placed in the permits, and it was done very intentionally.
Can we specifically prohibit them to be used as docks?
I think
Well, I don't think
we could.
my concern is that, you know, anybody, regardless of the topography of their lot, can, if we are allowing these things, they can ask for one. And we've already demonstrated an approval of one of these based on a prior approval of one of these. So, it's going to be a precedent thing. I know we always talk about case-by-case basis, but I've seen that, personally, I've seen that as kind of a way to kick the can down the road, and then often the precedent, when push comes to shove and there's a decision to be made, the precedent really prevails. So I'm just, the pond goes in and out for everybody. And, maybe some people have a beach and some people have mud. But if we're going to be making accommodations for some people because they don't want to walk in the mud, then
Well, we already have.
I think anytime,
and what we have done is in effect allowed a dock. That's what a dock does in a way. It allows you to walk out to the water without walking on the bottom.
the sentence that says, should this policy be amended to include platforms and enlarged bottom steps, thereby closing the loophole. A loophole is a bad thing because it opens the door to possible, and possible becomes a positive. And if we're trying to avoid additional things on Georgica Pond that are docks, enlarged bottom steps, and platforms, then we should say, yes, let's close the loophole. Why leave the door open to, as you say, John, based on precedent? As soon as somebody next door has one of these applications and it's approved, case by case, the neighbor is going to want the same. So I think the word loophole, closing a loophole, is a good thing.
Well, I think ultimately this is going to come down to a motion laid on the table and voted on, so.
Well, it's also what's best for the environment too. Is it, from an ecotourism perspective, it's best to have some type of platform that's properly placed there that's not going to damage the bottom like it would people dragging kayaks or sunfishes or sailboats through the mud. Sometimes it's better to have some sort of structure in place. And it's safer as well.
It's more like you're looking at a deck, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not, if it's not involving a boat, then it's not really a dock. What's the purpose of it?
Well, I think they are involving boats. They may not be tied up to the side of it, but they're probably, I'm sure there are kayaks being dragged up onto it, which is fine, but.
And what happens to the little sailboats that they have at the head of the pond? They're moored there.
They're all
Okay.
moored.
I mean, generally they're moored.
They're
They're moored in one, not one area necessarily. There are individual boats moored off properties, but there is an area a mooring area for the association, at least on the town side. I don't know. I mean, it's like with any of this stuff. It's like, the way I look at it, we're holding these ponds in trust for everybody in town, not necessarily just the convenience of the people who have properties on them. I mean, they're part of all the people in town, but, so's the guy who wants to put his kayak in at Cove Hollow and kayak down the cove along the shore.
All right, so as you said, this is going to that'll come down to a vote. You ready to move on to the next? All right. Dock prohibition. Should this board extend a new dock prohibition to the remaining unprohibited portion of 3 Mile Harbor? No committee recommendations to be discussed at full board level.
Does anybody know why this occurred?
Good question. Don't.
I mean, it would seem that at the time, there must have been some type of reason to do this, and I, for the life of me, I can't think what it would be.
I think at least I think part of it was that the pressure, all the other 3 Mile Harbor and Hog Creek weren't in the 84 prohibition. Hog Creek had a lot of docks on it, and there might have been a lot of docks being proposed for it or recently built. And the same was true for Hampton Waters, the 3 Mile Harbor. So I think that's what the focus was.
The whole thing is on Hampton Waters, I would think, because a lot of the other places don't really suit a dock, I don't think, you know?
Well, what do you mean suit a
Well,
dock?
I mean, it's either connected to town property or it's like, you know, marshy, grassy, the Tanville Creek comes in. Or else it's all commercial marinas now.
Well, although, what was overlooked, if you're looking at it that way, what was overlooked, in my opinion, at that time was the Sunset Cove area, where there is a lot of marshland, and there are docks over the marsh, which are problematic now, or some of them are problematic now. But that wasn't part of it either. I don't know why.
But that area was left out, I guess, mostly because of Hampton Waters, right?
I think Hampton Waters must have had a lot to do with it. I don't really know. But I think there were also some specific, there was something with the dock, a dock that was, I don't know, I shouldn't even say, because I'm not really clear on it.
Did you ever pull the minutes, John, or was someone
What's that?
back in the 80s? Did we look through those? Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion about docks back in, around the prohibitions.
Anything enlightening
What's that?
would lead us to
Portions of the minutes pulled. that-
Bill's
that I
question.
wanna read.
Are they clear? Can you understand why?
There's nothing that explicitly states this is why. The only things that, I think reading them is just a matter of interpretation. So my interpretation of what I read came down to several of the trustees stating issues around navigation and the,
Resource.
and the fisheries,
Riparian
the
rights
shellfish
and
fisheries.
stuff, right?
What's that, Bill?
And the
Riparian rights, I mean,
Yep. Those are the three main things that came up.
how much of an effect would it have now? That's another question, I mean, how many docks could possibly go in there
Well, not,
that aren't in there now, you know?
yeah. The town's saying none, so be more consistent with their stance.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying physically.
Physically, it's not that many homes,
Yeah.
really, right? Like handful of houses.
10?
Yeah,
No,
maybe.
I think it's more than that. I mean, look,
So what
that
would the
whole,
harbor
that
look like
whole
with 10 more
shoreline,
docks?
the whole eastern shoreline is probably largely could be developed with docks. And, there's some issues on the western shoreline, I think, with shallow water pretty far out, that might be a problem, but not entirely, not the entire shoreline. I just feel as though we should make our policy consistent. My feeling is that, I know one of the issues that was raised back when the dock prohibitions were put in place was the resource, they talk about clam beds and things like that. And, since then, and I brought this up before, but since then, the town has instituted a shellfish hatchery and restocking program, which, increases the potential, bottom land usable for that resource. And some of that, all along the the north of Hands Creek and south of Sammy's Beach, that whole western shoreline is a prime oyster growing and seeding area. And so I think it expands that whole, resource-based argument for allowing that area to be accessible to the public for harvesting the natural resource.
In the 80s, over on that western shore, it was a prime location for soft clams and also razor clams, but that's no longer the case.
Well, they come and go too, these beds and these populations.
Over here, but when was the last time we saw them?
We haven't seen the compost.
Well, no, I should, the most recent request to us, which we honored, to open a soft clam powering season was as a result of soft clams being found off Squaw Road, I think it was.
And did we ever get a report on how they did?
Anecdotal.
We got to do better than that.
Well,
better.
we got feedback, but it was,
I want to see pictures.
nobody gave us a binder.
Doing a count.
Yeah, no pictures, you didn't get
We
them.
got anything put together at the business office, let's put it that way. But that's passed, and we haven't been asked since, so.
Well, there's still time to do some research for those who haven't looked at those past minutes. And
Well, I had a question. Have we gotten any additional comments? I think we did get one, at least. Mac
Yes,
emailed.
this is
I have it attached here.
He just let us know that.
First
he-
coastline.
Have we gotten any correspondence as a
pilings.
result of the public meeting?
That you're referring to this letter
I don't, yeah, I guess so.
from First Coastal, Billy.
He said he left piling, he took floating docks out, left the pilings in.
Yes, this is the letter. You all
okay.
have
One
seen
second.
this?
Hey, Matt,
Yep,
are you there?
this is Jason, but yeah.
Oh, Jason, I'm sorry. Jim is saying that the signal is going in and out. You aware of that?
Not on our end.
It may be on my end.
It
It's
is.
on your end? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Go.
Yeah, it's this.
Yeah, no, I did see it. But they're talking about removal of pilings and such. What does it say anything about actual construction of new docks?
No, I just meant in general.
This is the,
We left the record open, my
Right.
point.
Right.
okay.
That's the only.
That's what came in.
I'm aware of.
There's been zero comment on
And we had it on the website, and I put it all over
on a
social
complete
media,
ban of
so-
docks.
And
There's been no comment whatsoever.
Chris's articles
is
have all
interesting.
opened it to the public.
It seems like the town has just been of the opinion that no docks were allowed anyplace for the last 20 years, and they were cool with it.
Town, you mean people in the town.
Population, yeah.
Right. All the concerns all come from people who already have their docks and what
wanna
the
leave
policy is
pilings
going to
in.
be on those. So it's just something else to keep in mind.
You can make a good argument for consistency by just
So this is the last
making it.
page.
So I feel.
Are you reading that?
Yep, I got it. All right, go to number 9, the resolution process. So this will be for our next meeting. 2 resolutions to be prepared. Whether the trustees will enact a dock prohibition to the remaining portions of 3 Mile Harbor. And 2, all other dock policy considerations to be voted on per line item. Any items that do not pass and carry will be struck from the resolution. That's just a line through it.
I know.
Anybody?
I think you did a fabulous job,
Yeah, great job.
and I think everything was covered, so thank you.
Very well done.
John, Bill, David, Jim,
Chris? Chris?
Chris Carrillo, yeah, he's not here tonight, and Francis. Thank you very much. I thought it was very detailed and very thoughtful.
Thank you. All right. Ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. It's not showing on the agenda, but under committee reports, we have,
Reed Family Trust.
yes. Where
It
is
fits into tonight.
We got a request from Billy Ajak
Yeah.
for
The extension of
renewal
time, right?
of trustee permit 7-22, in-kind replacement of the existing dock and bulkhead at 177 3 Mile Harbor Road.
You and I.
Just haven't gotten to this yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's been there for a long time. They're going to do some work on it. I think we.
Yeah, you know what, hey guys, you know what I think's going on with that is, that's a property that was purchased, or I think it may have been in a family. There's a proposal, I think they're before the town for an RSP for a total rebuild of the property, which is the reason that dock hasn't been redone, is I think that project may have been put off until fall.
So.
Right.
We approved
Part
it
of
before.
part of the permit, our permit is for the bulkhead as well. So I think that affects the upland portion. I think that's the main sticking point, is the coordination of the upland work with the bulkhead work.
They're gonna tear down the house. That's a pretty big
Yeah, it's
job.
a tear down.
I
rebuild.
remember when we discussed it the last time, it all seemed, we all supported it. It seemed like the thing to do.
So there's really nothing we need to do here. It's just
Just renew it.
notification.
Yeah.
They're
Or,
just requesting that the permit be renewed. We've already approved it last year. They're just requesting a renewal.
I mean, the dock is
This
still
is not the
there.
little house on the, is this the house, John, that we went by when we were seeding the cottage? Is that the same house? It was like a little cottage house.
Yeah, there's a house and like cottage on this property.
No,
Different
no,
house.
that's, what's his name? Lance Sutter. That's up in, by Harbor Marina. This is down,
177 3
it's
Mile.
down.
Little
far.
south of East Hampton.
Mr.
Halfway
Hurlin,
down the harbor.
By
Mr.
Shagwell.
Hurlin property, right?
The-
Mr. Hurlin property.
Oh, okay.
So anyone want to make a,
I thought,
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant this permit renewal.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Jim, and do you have something on the yacht club?
On which yacht club, Devin?
Yeah.
Well, Devin, that's actually, I communicated with Arlene today. They just got their DEC, literally, I think maybe today. We can put that on the December 11th meeting. The work's not gonna be done until May.
Okay.
What work is that at Devon?
That's the annual dredging. They were up for DEC renewal this year.
All right.
That's just for the little channel into their marina?
Yes.
Yeah, it's something they basically do every year.
We're down to administrative. I don't have any bills for payment listed.
First.
We have the minutes for November 13th, 2023.
I read them, they're fine.
Yeah, I did
John.
too. I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Financials for the months ended September 30th, 2023. Anybody look at them?
Yeah,
Okay.
they looked okay, looking, but just briefly.
You want to hold them for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Table. Okay, and the only thing I have on the report of the clerk is that email from Mike Bettini.
Yeah. You know, the highway department's been taking care of this.
Which actually.
Yeah, hey, guys, I looked at that, you know.
I'm sure, I've been taking care of it
Yeah,
for this couple of years.
you know, the areas that we're talking about are beach access, they're road ends.
Mhm.
And could we put snow fence across there? As a pedestrian access, it would be pretty practical. As a vehicular access or an emergency access, I think it may be better to continue some sort of maintenance here rather than impede perhaps an emergency operation with some snow fence and stuff. It seemed to be a reach.
Well, I think, you know, the village has a vehicular access there, and they put fencing up. They keep the vehicular access part open.
One line, it's not gonna stop.
I mean, you could try, there's no reason you couldn't try it. My suspicion is what's gonna happen here is you're still gonna have sand in the parking lot.
Yeah,
You know, because typically when you put the snow fence up, the sand doesn't accumulate seaward of the snow fence. It actually accumulates at the snow fence and land. So I think you may find yourself still having to deal with some sand in the parking lot, but
Yeah, well, at Main Beach, Sunday, it looked just like the Mike Bettini pictures at Main Beach. But there was snow fence erected. Now, I don't know if the snow fence was erected before the
I think
storm
it
or
was
not.
directed before. One line is, it's not gonna stop sand being pushed by water. The snow fence
That was wind.
stops the wind blowing sand.
That was wind-driven sand that did that.
All right, well, late this afternoon, Kim Shaw sent an email saying that she and Clark, actually, Richard Webb, have been dealing with it for the past couple of years, so.
Yeah.
They've been putting up fence or?
No, they've been pushing the sand back onto the beach and.
We had
some
permits
off
from
onto
the
dune.
DEC like probably 20 or 30 years ago that it was, removing sand from a paved area was totally the appropriate thing to do. The town could just do it.
My concern was that the sand comes up and then it's just pushed to the side on top of the dune instead of back on the beach. And
They've been putting it back.
the dune just gets bigger and comes back down onto the parking lot, you know?
But I read his email as, it seemed as though it might be, more cost effective and utilizing less resources to prevent the sand from getting there in the first, or a lot of the sand from getting there in the first place.
Main Beach, the snow fencing was completely covered over this weekend. You saw just the tips of it.
Yeah, that was a pretty strong wind.
Yeah. It was unbelievable. So,
All right, anybody have anything?
I think it's time for Jim to go to bed.
what time is it there?
2:08.
2:08. Oh, my God.
108.
Oh, 108, okay.
108.
You're a committed man, Jim.
Yeah.
Motion to close?
Motion to close.
Is there a second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.